In April 2024, the world watched as hundreds of missile streaks illuminated the night sky over Israel. For the first time, these weapons were launched directly from Iranian territory. Headlines framed this as a sudden escalation. In reality, the April strikes ended 40 years of strategic ambiguity. The hidden war between these two nations was finally impossible to ignore. This hostility is a relatively recent development. Before 1979, Iran and Israel operated as strategic allies. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the two nations shared intelligence and military expertise to counter their common rivals in the Arab world. The 1979 Islamic Revolution ended that partnership in a matter of weeks. The new theocratic leadership under Ayatollah Khomeini branded Israel the Little Satan and severed every diplomatic and commercial tie. To manage this new enmity without starting a total war, both sides relied on the concept of plausible deniability. It was an unspoken agreement: strike the enemy as hard as possible, but keep the origin of the attack just vague enough to avoid a formal declaration of war. This psychological safety net allowed both states to spend 4 decades sabotaging, assassinating, and bombing one another while maintaining the strategic fiction that they were at peace. This shadow war functioned across 4 distinct levels of operation. Level 1, targeted assassinations. Between 2010 and 2020, a series of Iranian nuclear scientists were killed by car bombs and motorcycle gunmen in the streets of Tehran. While the world looked to Israel, the Israeli government stayed silent, refusing to provide any confirmation of their role. Level 2 took the conflict into the digital realm, cyber warfare. In 2010, the Stuxnet virus was discovered in the Natanz enrichment plant. This joint U.S.-Israeli cyberweapon physically destroyed 1,000 centrifuges by forcing them to self-destructive speeds, all while the plant's monitors showed the operators that everything was normal. Level 3 utilized external actors to project power. Proxy warfare. Iran built what it calls the axis of resistance. This map shows the constant flow of cash and weapons from Tehran to groups like Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen. This network effectively moved the front lines away from Iranian soil. By using these groups to strike Israel, Iran created a buffer zone that protected its own borders from direct retaliation. Level 4 involved high-risk covert operations. In 2018, Israeli agents broke into a secure Tehran warehouse and stole 500 tons of documents, the entirety of Iran's secret nuclear archive, and drove the physical evidence out of the country overnight. For years, these 4 levels allowed for high-stakes violence. The damage was severe, but the ambiguity remained high enough to keep the region from slipping into a total, direct conflict. The attacks of October 7, 2023, placed the existing rules of the shadow war under an intense physical strain. As the entire axis of resistance mobilized, the threshold for what both sides would tolerate began to shift. On April 1, 2024, the safety net finally tore. An Israeli airstrike destroyed the Iranian consulate building in Damascus, killing senior generals of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Diplomatically, a consulate is treated as the sovereign territory of the nation it represents. By striking this building, Israel moved past the shadow war and struck the Iranian state directly. Iran's response on April 13th was a departure from decades of strategy. They launched over 300 drones and missiles from their own soil toward Israeli cities. This exchange signaled that the era of deniability was over. The violence was no longer hidden. It was now a matter of direct state-on-state confrontation. The removal of those proxy buffers forced the region into a state of high-intensity warfare. By June 2025, the two nations were engaged in a 12-day air war. This was the first time Israeli and Iranian pilots fought for control of the skies in a sustained aerial conflict. This escalated further in February 2026 with Operation Epic Fury. In a major policy shift, the United States military intervened to conduct offensive strikes alongside Israel. American B-2 bombers and naval cruise missiles targeted Iran's most sensitive sites, including the nuclear facilities at Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan. What began as a localized intelligence rivalry has transformed into a kinetic war, drawing the world's most powerful military directly into the center of the conflict. This transition to open warfare forces every global trade partner to recalculate their security. When the shadow war ends, the economic consequences reach far beyond the Middle East. India provides a clear example of a nation struggling to navigate this new environment. India's economy relies on its management of Iran's Chabahar port to maintain trade routes into Central Asia. Yet India's defense sector is deeply integrated with Israeli technology. As major shipping lanes face disruption and local ports become targets, even neutral nations find the costs of conflict are no longer contained. The end of plausible deniability has created a Middle East where the rules are clear, but the price of engagement has never been higher.